Welcome. Feel at home. We're very excited to have you guys here with us. I'll just give you a bit background of ADMI so that you know who we are and what we do. But feel free to come again another time or to hang around after and learn more about us. So Africa Digital Media Institute has been here for 12 years. We train creatives and techies on how to turn their passion into profession.
Hello, good morning everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you all today, and really credit to you to making time on a Saturday morning. It just shows your dedication and your commitment to learning to be here today and to join us for the session. So, it's really a pleasure to welcome you all to this data visualization and storytelling workshop. In today's world, data is more than just the numbers and statistics. It actually holds the stories that can inspire decisions, drive change, and unlock opportunities. However, for data to make an impact, we need to transform it into compelling narratives that can resonate with the audience that you're actually presenting it to. So in today's workshop, it's actually designed to equip you with some of the skills to transform complex data into clear, engaging, and insightful visual stories. Thanks to Sajani, who's pulled together a lot of the content that you're going to be working through. And whether you're a seasoned analyst or new to the field, we'll be exploring some of the techniques and best practices that will enhance your ability to communicate data effectively. So by the end of the session, it's our hope that you'll feel empowered to not just share information, but to tell stories that can spark an understanding and action. So that's a little bit about the objectives of today's session, and my team will take you through. But I want to share a little bit about who we are as World Data Lab as well. So if you haven't already checked us out, Sajani, do you mind just clicking on the button?
Yeah, so can you hear me? The QR code will take you to a Google Drive folder, so you can access the slides, and there's a data set later we will use. But just because it's quite a small screen, so if you can't see the details, you can follow through on the PDF for the slides. Or you can go to that tiny URL as well if you can't scan the QR code.
So, so this is the structure of today's session. So we're hoping to finish around 12:30, but it's going to be very interactive. So our team will work with you in terms of group exercises and providing some content for that as well. So that's just the high-level outline. So just a bit of an introduction. So you're going to be working very closely today with Sajani, Wolfgang, and myself, but we're part of a broader team as well. So we've got at World Data Lab we're a global team with a very strong African presence as well. So we've got an office here in Nairobi. We've got teams. Our whole objective has been to try and build data science capacity on the continent. So Nairobi is our East Africa hub. We've also got a team out in Kigali, and colleagues also working from Ghana as well, who are part of our team. But as you can see, it's quite global. Our headquarters is actually in Vienna, Austria. We've also got an entity out in the US as well. But there's colleagues joining us from all parts of the world, and with remote work these days, it's much easier to connect and the like. So our mission at World Data Lab is to achieve a more inclusive and prosperous, sustainable world, to make everyone count by counting everyone. We focus on a lot of the demographic data, consumer spending data, as well as tracking the Sustainable Development Goals. The inspiration behind our company was initially to understand the SDGs, and then we kind of expanded into demographic and consumer spending data. And we'll show you the utility and the value of how those data sets actually help actually inform decision making as well. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we were founded, Wolfgang's a co-founder, and we've got the other co-founder, Dr. Homi Karas, who is the architect of the Sustainable Development Goals. And yeah, we saw the power for addressing data gaps and closing the gaps in data to solve these global challenges. Yeah, and then we've developed innovative methodologies in terms of how we go about executing our work, and we've developed a whole series of impact tools. So highly encourage you to go and, as I said, check out the website. We've built, for example, a poverty clock where you can actually see poverty numbers in real time. It's publicly available. We want to make data accessible to the public. You don't need to go and read long, lengthy reports to kind of get the numbers. The clock is a user-friendly tool. We've also been working with, for example, the MasterCard Foundation, and that's part of the reason that brings us here to East Africa. We were in Uganda to launch the Uganda Subnational, but that's a tool to kind of track youth employment, also publicly available. And there's simplicity behind the tools and the products that we build out. Yeah, and our data is very granular on the demographic and consumer spending side. We've got data for 180 countries, broken down by over 200 categories. We've also got city-level data. And one of the core strengths of what we do is the forecasting and projections of our data as well. So on the demographic consumer spending data, it's we've got forecasts up to 2035. There's a whole platform, and Wolfgang can talk much more extensively, he's so passionate about this, of how we've built these data sets and brought it together in a very consistent, comparable way. And that's one of the beauty of the things that we've done, not only on our impact side, but on the commercial side, on this demographic consumer spending data. It's to bring those data sets together in a very consistent, comparable way. Takes a lot of effort to make sure that it is globally harmonized. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Wolfgang, I think, now. Okay.
Super. Thank you so much, Reshma. Thank you so much, ADMI team. You'll hear a lot from your compatriot, Sajni, in a minute. I want to say a few additional things and do one cool thing that you are the leaders in the world, and you may not know yet. As Reshma said, we're also expanding. We look for talent. I hope ADMI is a good place to look for that. We need hardworking people who show up on a Saturday at 9 o'clock. Are a good sub-selection already. It's a good part. Those who come 9:30 are okay too. They're still in the pool. But that's the first thing. You need to enjoy the work. You need to enjoy learning. And we recruit on all areas, right? We have tech people, we have data people, we need creatives, and we have others. And under the others is Reshma and myself, which is more the operational, the business type people. So just curious here in the room, if you just make it simple, right? If you think there's just 3 types of people in the world, the techie data people, the creatives, and the others. And again, I'm in the others, so business type people. Where are you? So how many are the techies here in the room? 1, 2 only? Only 2. So what are you guys doing? Developer. So you're software, and you? Data scientist, great. Which software do you use in data science? Python. Python. Do you use R as well or not yet? R, okay, cool. And then who is more on the creative side? Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Again, hopefully we can interact. What are you, if I may ask you? What are you? Communications. Okay, super. And then all the others is the rest then, or? Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, what are you? What's your background, yeah? Yes, you?
I do MRD,
Okay, so you're about the development space. Okay, great. Again, there's need for people in the whole space. The area where the majority of our team is actually what Sajni is representing, and you hear more, so there would only be one candidate for now, which is, I think, you, who does R. So if you have some friends in the space and interest, looking at you, yeah. So but we have a lot of strength there, but we need also others who can do communication, who can get us out there. Yesterday we had a big event actually with the Aspen Institute with executives. And so yeah, there's a lot of opportunity because cool data needs to get out in the world as well. So that's just as one introduction. The other is, and I think Reshma alluded to this, and you will see this with Sajni, is data. You know, we need R programmers, people where you guys think is super complicated. I don't want to enter that. That's needed. But this, maybe none of us can build an iPhone, and you need super techies to build it. But we can all use it. So as long as you can use it, that's the aim, not make it complicated. We need people who can deal with complicated, complex things, but then they make it simple. So data should be fun, data should be entertaining. That should always be the test also for today. Can you make it easy? Can you be entertaining? Can you go home to your family and tell an interesting data story? And what is a good data story? What's a good data story? One that has a number, right? And it's not a speech, it's not a text, it's not a book, it's a number. How many people in Nairobi buy shampoo today? Actually, hard to, oh, how much? How many actually? But actually, we have the number. We know actually. So you can calculate that. There's calculation. And it's a number. It's not a story. It's not a book. It's just a number. And we have these numbers, and we can talk a little bit more how you can do that. So okay, this now. Do you know what I need to do? Yeah, we need one of you guys who do tech. Sajni is that too. Okay. A quiz. Okay, let's do the quiz first, and then I'll do one data, hopefully entertainment exercise with you. Mm-hmm. Oh, you want to do the? No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, maybe while Sajni did the quiz, I was introduced very kindly, and that was actually, and you guys did a good job because it was someone new, but I held two more important jobs in my life. One, I was for the World Bank, the lead economist here in Kenya, and I lived in Kenya 4 years, and I think you alluded to this. And I was once the soccer commissioner of the international school. And so I organized the Nairobi Mini World Cup, and I'm still very proud of it. And also the Kibera kids actually won that Mini World Cup against the more rich kids' schools. But yeah, that's still the great memories I had. It was a while ago. I had also a column in the Nation media, and had this book called Realizing the Kenyan Dream. But yeah, that's just was one of my attachment to Kenya. That's why we also come back here very often. Over to you, Sajni.
Okay, so I want to make this very interactive. So if you can scan the QR code, can you all see it at the back? Or you can go to menti.com, and the code is 8363855. Have most people signed in? Okay. So the first question is, what is your primary goal for attending this workshop? Is it improving your data visualization skills? Is it learning how to tell a data story? Is it understanding the best practices for presenting data? Or is it all of the above? I guess it could be none of the above. Okay, that's really interesting. And then just to get a sense of who the audience is, what is your position in your current role? Are you a student, internship? Are you junior or mid to senior level? Nice. And yeah, one of the things about data storytelling is, regardless of what your level or position is, at various points, like you've just seen, executives have to talk about data and tell their story, but also as a student, you need to do this in your presentations as well. How would you rate your experience with data viz tools? Beginner, intermediate, advanced, or expert? Okay, we'll all have something to learn from each other today then. So I think this is a word. 63855. This is a word cloud, like you just need to type in text. So you can type in what tools you currently use for creating visuals. So is it Excel, Python, R, Power BI, whatever you use? Nice. Excel is often like simplest and easiest to enter into the visualization. And then as you progress, you can start doing more complicated charts with Python or Excel or even Tableau. And just to get a sense of what you think is the most important element for a good visualization. Yeah, so it could be simplicity, clarity, effective messaging. Yeah, we're all getting the right picture. And when you come to presenting any visualizations, what challenges do you face? Okay. We'll try and cover all of these things today. So from cleaning the data to understanding what chart is the best tool to use for what data type, and then finally putting it all together to tell a story. And then when it comes to storytelling, what is the most important thing to consider when presenting the data? I think they're all important, but the strong narrative is something that's the most important, I think, from here. Because if you don't present the insights in a compelling way, then your message can often be lost, even if you have the most accurate data or the best visual. Okay. Do you want to do? Yep.
No, super. That was, I think, a cool intro. And maybe two additional thoughts before I try to do one exercise or one illustration with you. One, obviously, the visual part is part of it, right? Storytelling as well. So it's not just about visualization. You need to also, I think one of you is in communication. To communicate, the question is also, or the issue is often, how people, responsive, also the time of the day, some people start to type in the computer or be on the cell phone, but I don't criticize that because people, it might be boring, so it's good to be engaging and to ask you questions as well and to have a full narrative from the beginning to the end. I'm not sure if you know about the 5-second test of charts, and for me, the gold standard is always The Economist magazine, if you look at that. So the 5-second test is you need to understand the chart in 5 seconds. If you don't, then you didn't do a mistake. So ask your mother next time you show her a chart and see, does she see the result? The very best charts have the 5-second and the 5-minute test, that you can still study the chart and you see much more than it's like a picture, like a wonderful picture you see from the distance, the picture, and then you go closer, you see more. That's some of the best. You want to do this one, Sajni, now? I can. Yeah? You can talk to it like that. Okay, then we'll do the first fun exercise. Are you interested how long you live? And I want to know who lives the shortest in this room and who lives the longest. So and don't be superstitious. It's only math. It's no religion here, just mathematics. And we can explain how the math works. This is linked to my TED Talk that was mentioned earlier. So can you go to population.io? I guess for you, is anybody here who's non-Kenyan? Is a non-Kenyan nationality? No, you're all Kenyans, yeah? Okay, so then it will be, in the end, the math behind is simpler, the demographics. It's a question of age and gender. Not hard to predict that most likely one of the women here in this room will live longest, but let's hope some men have a chance too. So, so type it in, and maybe Sajni does for herself, and then you see how it looks like. Yeah? Yes, exactly. But that's a nice trick, right? When you have a date or so, and you don't want to ask the age, you just say, you know, I have this cool tool. I want to know how long you live. And then you can backtrack the calculation, and then you have a, through this, you then force the person to put in the age. So yeah, you type your age, and you do your country, gender, you go click on go. And then the first interesting thing is, as you see from Sajni, you see, this is something I didn't know. Again, it's a bit disappointing, the first part. Sajni is older than half the world. Can you imagine? This young lady is older than half the world. It is partly because of you guys, because you guys are so young here in these countries. In my country, she'd be super young. But yeah, you see the number, obviously, of people born moving up every second. Every second, there is 4 people born, roughly. And some die, but fortunately, not many die on the age of Sajni's cohort. But then, you know, some people die on my group, all the groups. But it's exactly half-half, but it may have been just a few weeks ago that Sajni was exactly the middle person in the world. Can you imagine at some point in this planet, you're exactly in the middle. And you can calculate that, so it happens. But you may have passed the middle of Kenya already, so if you go click on the Kenya thing, you see Sajni is older than 70% in Kenya. So if you're a bit younger than her, you may just be in the middle. That'd be actually self-interesting. So have you done it? So is anybody of you, go to the Kenya part, is anybody of you at the 50% in Kenya or younger? Are you still doing it? Population.io. You just go back. Oh, then it's right, yeah, population.io. And then we'll do the really interesting thing, answer the question, who lives the longest in this room? And if you're a big data geek, we could try to expand the model and find out Nairobi versus Mombasa versus Kisumu versus many of the other places. So did you do it now? Okay, so anybody here is below 50%? Or anybody say below 60% in Kenya? It cannot be, right? Some of you, you know, you must be young. Some of you are younger than 25, so, you know. So which percentage are? You're struggling? Yeah. So what are you? Huh? 37%. Wow. But how old are you? Huh? 23. You're 37%. It's quite interesting, right? Because Kenya is aging then. Sorry, you're 37 in the world or in Kenya? In the world, okay. In Kenya? 56% in Kenya. It's quite interesting, huh? It's 37% in the world, 56%. So anybody below, you know where you're clicking? You need to do the switch over here. World versus Kenya. No, if you go down. World versus Kenya. And again, you do again, Sajni, you see if you go world, you switch back. This is, by the way, the world distribution of demography. Quite interesting, quite stable. Every year is roughly 135 million people, some up and down, and then people, you know, there was either fewer people or start to die, and then it goes downhill a bit. But yeah, anybody below 56% in Kenya? Yeah? 53. And? Okay, but she still won, but good. 53, super cool. Bright, we're super close, but all of you are older than half of Kenya. Can you imagine that? So it's good, still keep learning, but there's a new crowd coming. Be ready for that. Good, so now let's go to the interesting part. Again, it looks a bit, it looks green, but that's bad here because all the green countries, you live longer than in Kenya. But the red countries is worse. And that's one of the interesting paradoxes that you could try to find out. It's why Tanzania is better than Kenya for women in that age. But yeah, Sajni has till May 31st, 2066. Yeah, let's check actually Tanzania. That's actually quite interesting. Tanzania is 2071. So there's something, by the way, it could be some data issue, so it'd be good to data cleaning was part of this. But there is also something with health, care, maybe with other mortality factors. Obviously, Kenya has a few issues, also in the north, that Tanzania looks better for women in that age group. But if you go to Uganda, maybe, then Uganda is worse than Kenya. So it's only, it's about a year less in Uganda if you were a woman of the age of Sajni. For men, it could be different. So yeah, let's go back to the Kenya. So May 2066, who lives longer than May 2066 of your group here? No, no, you have to put Kenya. There's no world because you are Kenyan. So you have a world, if you were a world citizen, that gives you also a number. But let's do the Kenya number. Yeah, on the cell phone is a bit, yeah. But it is, say again? Yeah, but I think if you go move up one, then I think the Kenya number should come up. Those with the computers is nicer because you have the world map. Yes, 2066 is the year we have to beat. Yes? 2072, which month? October 2072. You? July 2073, here. Say again? October 20, what were you? July, October 2073. What about you?
February 2069.
69. You're the best man so far. February 2069, and you October 2073. Anybody? Any other taker? Good. So what's your name? Shiguri. Good, congratulations. So live healthy, and can you imagine, even imagining the world in 2073? It's quite something cool to think about. There's another interesting factoid. Actually, let's do this exercise quickly. For most children born today, how long do they live? They live into next century. And I was born, like some of you, in the last century. So even thinking of the 22nd century is actually quite incredible. But yeah, if you have children or if you have nephews and nieces who have just been born, it should be interesting in Kenya if they would live till next century. Because in most countries in the world, in the rich, they would live, obviously they live more than 80. Let's make it a girl, there's a higher chance. And that itself is an interesting concept, to think about the next century and to live through this whole century here. So if you go down, Sajni. So you need to refresh. Sometimes there's a bug there. You just go to the very top. Yeah, just to the refresher. We have sometimes this issue. So I think hopefully the internet is good enough, but we'll see it soon. If you want to go down just quickly. Wow. See that? I'm not sure you see it. February 7, 2099. So we need to, for a girl born in Kenya today. So if things would improve a bit, or if you wait a bit, then your child will live till next century. Any of you here have children? Yeah? How old, the child? 5. Yours? Not yet? Okay, 5. So if again, this is an average of Kenya. If she lives healthier and is wealthier and better educated, which is likely given your presence here, I think she'll go further. Huh? She can live the next century. She'll be an old woman then, but still, it's quite incredible to think about this. Okay, before we do, we'll shift Sajni to the other exercise. Yeah. Any questions on this? Do you have any thoughts, reflections? What you heard? Yes? Sorry, I was already anticipating you. At a point? Yeah, yes? You? No?
My question is, what's the accuracy of this data? My question is, what's the accuracy of this data?
Okay, so somebody wants to buy life insurance, I think, here. Well, I'm not sure if you know the famous Churchill quote, democracy is bad, but it's the best out there, simply put. So in the end, it's the best possible estimate with the best possible data. And it gives you, again, don't think in terms of certainty. Think of statistics, there's a probability, right? There's a probability distribution. There's a chance you die next week, which is very low, and there's a chance you live even 20 years longer, which is also low. And there is a distribution in the middle, that's the midpoint. So it's the best, given the current situation in the country. So the logic is the following. Actually, demography is one of the subjects, the topics, the disciplines that actually has the best data. It's still not perfect, but it's getting better and better. And we know when people die. It's actually quite easy to measure because there is good statistics. And we know how things have been improving. And we know if it's better to live in Nairobi or in Garissa. So all of this goes in, we know what's for a man versus a woman. These are all known quantities. And there's always exceptions. There's a few countries in the world where actually men live longer than women, very few, in West Africa. There's some countries like where women live 15, 20 years longer than a man, like in Russia, but it's all in the data, you see. So it's the best possible. But again, if you do your life plan and you want to have through a midpoint, having said that, what I said before, this is assuming you're an average Kenyan, which averages from Garissa to Mandera to Nairobi to Mombasa to Liboi, and obviously you're not, because you're here in this room. So the likelihood that you guys live longer is good. Did you hope for a better number, or what was your... I was just curious, yeah. No, it's a perfect question. It's always a question you should ask, but then that's at least our approach at World Data Lab and our conviction. It's almost like we are very strong academics, and we have PhDs, etc. But academic can be sometimes harmful because people are afraid to put data out. And it's like the iPhone, right? You were not there, but I was there when the iPhone 1 was put out. It was a world revolution. If you would see an iPhone 1 now and you have your phones here, you would say, what a crap, right? So, so it always gets better. So the more you put data out, then it can get better. And with this one, if you tell me that Tanzania-Kenya comparison is wrong, well, tell me what the issue is. And then we can fix it, but maybe it is not an issue. Maybe the data is correct. So you need to put the data out transparently, and then you can improve it. But yeah, we had actually once Bill Gates on this platform, and then it collapsed because so many people used it. We didn't have the back end, and he also felt it was helpful because it was interesting. Even at his age, there's 8 years age difference between Ghana and US. Because the nice thing is you can tell actually many data stories with this tool. You can tell the Kenya-Tanzania story, you can tell the man-woman story, you can tell the story of your child, and you can also tell a story about age. Because I'm a German, so my life expectancy is higher than of your parents, but it starts to close. Because when you're 80 years in Germany, and I have a good friend here, James Mangunyu, who's turning 80 now as well, then there's not so much life left, then the delta is not that big. The difference, right? 80 years in Kenya, 80 years in Germany is not such a big difference. We did this also once for Joe Biden, the likelihood that he survives the next term. It was like, a good chance, but only he has like 7 years left to live in the US, because US is also not that great in life expectancy. So you can tell these cool stories with this. But yeah, always ask, about this, but then go deep and say which data point you think should be different. Anyway, I'll do one more exercise, which is or illustration, which is linked to Kenya. But any other points, questions? Obviously, we'll have later chat. Yep, all good? Good, okay. Then we go to that one. So it's a little data story. It's the story of financial inclusion and the world itself. So how many people are there in the world? Sorry? 8? 8, wow, okay. You knew I was from population now, you just saw? Very good. So 8.1, this is how fast the world moves, because we just had 8 billion. When I did this exercise, people even said 7 billion 2 years ago. They forgot that the world keeps moving. So we're already 8.1 billion, but I rounded down to make it simpler. So forgive me for this, or we can go half a year back, then it was like 8 billion. So that's 8 billion. But what is 6 billion? 6 billion is all of us, which is without the children. So 6 billion, 2 billion children. And the UN often uses children at 0 to 14 years, because in many countries, children age 15, they start to work or to be part of some apprenticeship. But also age 15, people can use legally, I think, M-Pesa, or can do other things. That is a new stage in life. But it doesn't matter as long as you use consistently. So 6 billion people are in the world that you are part of, that we are part of. If you think again, and I'm doing an M-Pesa exercise now, of M-Pesa customers, of people who buy things that children wouldn't buy, it's 6 billion. What is actually quite interesting, and that's part of our strength, is to understand how much money these 6 billion have. And there's a very easy way to think of the world. There's a world of young people, middle-aged people, old people, and there's a world of poor people, middle-class people, rich people. And they all come after one another normally. And that's what we have done. We have built a machine, and that Reshma referred to this, to can really calculate where these people are. So from population now, you see how many people there are in the world. So again, if you add this all up, 1.8 plus 3.4 is 5.4, 5.2, sorry, 5.2 plus 800 is 6 billion. And that's the groups. You have more your crowd, the young crowd, then you have my crowd, and then you have our parents. and that's, so if you keep going, then actually, but we can also organize ourselves by money. That's our strength. And money is how much money we spend. How much money we spend on water, on computers, on phones, on airtime, on transport, on everything, on our housing. And there's a bottom billion now, and there's good and bad news. The bad news is there's still a lot of poor people, but the good news is this bottom billion, the line has moved. It used to be actually 0 to 2 billion. It's now $5 a day. Sorry, $0 to $2. $2, you know what those of you who do SDGs, what's the poverty line in the world? Global poverty line. How many dollars? Have you heard of it? You know of Kenya's poverty line? 1 point? $1? Exactly $1 in Kenya? Great. Less than $1. Well, I'm impressed that you know that number. That's cool. In the world, it's higher. For Kenya, it's $2. $2.15 to be precise. And there needs to be a system to make it comparable across the world. But actually, $1 in Kenya, we can check, could actually be quite, $1 today, in shilling, which is, I guess, 140 shillings, right? 130 shillings, is equivalent to $2, say, in Germany. It's called purchasing power parity, because with $1 I can buy more ugali here than I can buy rice in Germany. That's a simple concept of purchasing power parity. That's what the World Bank has been doing, what we have been using as well. In any case, this is the global definition, so we can compare Kenya with anybody else. There's 1 billion on the bottom, that's to $5 a day. Sometimes it could include some of you, if you're students and if you live with your parents still and you don't have so much money. These people have not worried. I'm not worried about you because I think you guys will do fine. I'm more worried about the people in the villages who continuously don't earn much money. But then you get all the other billions, and there's exactly 6. So there's a bottom billion, and then you keep going. But the middle class is rising. It's especially rising in Asia, but it's starting to rise in Africa. And actually, you should count these people, because then also more companies are interested in Africa. That's why also Microsoft and Google came. That's why Bitco is going strong. Many other companies, because people start to buy more stuff. And then there's the rich people that they get reported on a lot, but they're actually it's not so many. It's just 1 billion, and the 5 billion are actually more important for you and for all of us. So that's the world. But I now want to do a special exercise and maybe ask a question first. So Reshma and I, we studied development, and I think some of you are in development, communications, monitoring, evaluation. For you, what would be development? When do you think, if you imagine Kenya 10 years from now, when would you say development has happened? What would it be? Who did the monitoring and evaluation? Yeah, that's you. So what do you think?
I've not gotten your question well. You can.
If you think of development, right, of positive development, and think of Kenya in 10 years, what would be different? What would development mean in very simple terms? What would it mean for you?
I think development in Kenya, for now, I think it's more in software, maybe things like education levels. I know they will go up because now everyone is able to access education. In terms of also digital is bringing quite another angle. So we'll get maybe even more households having even Wi-Fi, even in some of the rural areas. Looking at even the satellite that has also come, which is revolutionizing the same. The other thing is infrastructure. I think you've seen the government is putting a lot of efforts on it.
So but let's be simpler for you. How would your life be better in 10 years? What would have to happen?
As a person?
As a person, yeah.
As a person, maybe professionally, of course, I want to upskill more in terms of running. I think that's one of my goals. The other thing, as a person, of course, I'll have maybe, earn more and be able to, have more assets.
More. Okay.
Yeah, if we can.
Yeah, don't be shy. It's okay.
Yeah.
More. Yes, you go. You please, Margaret. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. For me, from a personal perspective, I think what positive development would look like for me is cheaper energy. Right now, our power bills are shooting up the roof. Fuel is just ridiculous, it's fluctuating up and down. Just having cheaper energy to enable us live our lives better.
Wonderful, because I got the two key words I was looking for. And again, you can challenge me, but if you build back to Sajni's question before, more money and cheaper prices, right? That's actually very simple money. And then you shouldn't be shy. More money is good, right? Why? Except you all want to have less money, then tell me. But that would be the first time I'm hearing that. So more money is good. So yeah, and so let me just give you a visual thing, because actually it took me quite a while doing this exercise, actually also with a MasterCard, and I gave this keynote, is to think of the world of getting richer. That would be the ideal. If everybody is super rich, then even the energy bills we can handle. But does it happen? Huh? Does everybody really get very rich quickly? And here, this is an illustration visualization we did with one of our colleagues. And this is the income distribution. So maybe, sorry, I'll go it slow here. So again, think of the 6 billion people. And now we're building the mountains here, because there's more people. Obviously, this is even. But look at the numbers. 0 to 10 is a lot of people. And then 15 to 100 is not so many, or about the same. So it is much more compressed in the lower end. So the world is still poor to some extent. It was poor, a big mountain here, $3, the 2010 mountain. We're starting 2010, 17, 18, and now the mountain moves to the right. So we are getting richer, or you're getting richer, especially Asians. I'll rerun it in a second. And this is the middle class belly that has emerged, which is good. There's more people here, people getting richer, but not everybody. There's still a lot of people on the low end, and it was recently half the world. So we're making progress, but it's hard to make everybody rich, and rich enough to pay the energy bills. I'm doing it again because you see something interesting. Watch 2020. So it's getting better. The curve is moving, getting more and more people. Also, some people move from poor to vulnerable. Not sure if you saw 2020. It stopped. Why did it stop in 2020? COVID, exactly. The only year it stopped, the only year the middle class shrank in the world, which is bad because we're adding more people, as we discussed before. So anyway, this is what we did. So that's, again, it's good that we have this opportunity. But I'm coming in a second to the key thing here, because it's actually this one here, $9.80. What is $9.80? It was actually the amount of money you need to have in the world on average to be part of the financial system. That was the amount of money you had. So there was M-Pesa was just beginning, and we're talking about the world. Nobody even knew about M-Pesa. And yeah, if you are rich enough, then Barclays takes you and you're a customer. And obviously banks are fundamental. Imagine you didn't have a bank account and just working on cash. So yeah, just make everybody rich, and then it's okay to do. But that will take 100 years. The other thing is let's make it easier, make it cheaper to access systems. And that's, again, something Kenyans may not realize, because you have it so good, because you're the world leader in making it easy to be part of the financial system. And so the threshold, think of your energy bills, but think of your access to finance, think of your possibility to buy a fridge, buy a stove, I'll say something on this in a second, becomes easier and easier and cheaper, and that's what happened on the financial system. So there's more inclusion in the financial system. Yesterday we were actually with Leila's other group, Leila Macharia's group on the Aspen Institute, and there was MGAS. Do you know MGAS? MGAS. All of you know. You use it? No? Okay. But how do you know it? Your mother uses it. Wow. So it's the same idea, right? Gas was expensive, it still is, but poorer people cannot access it. And somehow that is what development should also be about. Make it easy and easy, because we can't make all the poor rich, unfortunately, although we like, make it easier for the poor to be part of, and then obviously life gets better, and maybe then they get richer. So that's, again, we're talking about visualization, but that is, obviously, I hope it meets the 5-second test and the 5-minute test, because I'm already talking 5 minutes about it. But you see, you either increase the money or you reduce the threshold. And so it's now at $5 in the world. And if you take the situation 2010, like 2.8 billion people in the financial system, and then I'll come to you in a second. And then you have, I know, you're here part of the team. And then we calculate actually both what's called the income effect, so people getting richer and having it anyway easy, don't need to use MGAS, use the regular system, which is you guys, and then the threshold effect, which would be your mother, to say, yeah, she's benefiting from something because it got cheaper. And the good news is for you, and so we still have 1 billion people left. Some will really be hard to reach in the financial system, but because of Kenya's innovation that's now spreading the world, including in China, people even below $5 could be in the system in terms of financial services. We have $5 because some countries are doing worse than Kenya, and that's the average. And yeah, and then you get into the space where you're at. You have internet access, you have a bank account, and you become financially resilient. So you have the financially included and the digitally included here. So just a final thing before we go to the real exercises, and I don't know, we're doing this interactive, and I know we're running quite late, but I hope you find this still interesting, is I'll put back these 6 billion, which were 5.5 billion when you were very young, 2010, 2015, and show you what happened the last 10 years. So the orange are the included, so you have the poor, and as you expect, the rich are included. You may be here somewhere in this middle group, and some are still excluded, but then here, these lower end, the poor were excluded 10 years ago. Very few had access to finance, and now this has happened. Some rich guys came on top, they're obviously doing fine, and then here, look at this difference. A third in the world is now included of the poor. It's actually quite incredible. You can include the poor, and you need to be innovative, and you need to be innovative like Kenya has been. And part of it is what's called mobile money delta. And this is not a Kenya chart, it's a global chart. And Kenya inspired the world, which means here you can be, as you know, if you have a phone, you have almost like a mini bank account. At least you can do M-Pesa. And that's what other countries copied. And 11% of the poor in the world have that kind of opportunity, even though they don't have a bank account, which some have, as you see below. And so, yeah, what we have done here, again, this is hopefully a nice visualization. As you see, I'm moving this block. I'm interested in the poor block, moving this into the middle now, because if 33% is the average, that's the same bar. What if this is the average, what has to be here? Some have to be below, some have to be above, right? And so I'll be curious who's below and who's above. And so these are the countries. I even use Uganda here because Kenya is so strong that it's almost unfair to add Kenya here. But Nigeria is still cash-based. Nigeria is cash-based, so see how big the problem there is. We recently got stuck in Nigeria because we couldn't get money. It was needed to get dollars. It was really painful. Congo is worse than Nigeria in terms of banks, but it's picking up on mobile money. China has WeChat, so again, copied Kenya. And Uganda, which again, copied Kenya, is almost everybody can operate like a Kenyan. And again, I hope this is an interesting insight and a good visualization to show, nuance, because maybe to finalize here and to come back to Sajni's point, a chart should be simple, super simple, but it should still be insightful. If you would say, whatever, Kenya is at 50, how many million people? 53. Okay, if I would say 53 million people in Kenya and I put big 53 up with a lot of colors, it's okay, but it's not that interesting, right? At least not for you. You know this. I hope this you didn't know, and so you can see, can enjoy it, and then have deeper stories around it. Good. This is my last thing because we're talking about visualization. we believe in this concept of clocks. We are clock builders. This is just a prototype. We built this now out. It's always helpful to think about what does it mean now? What does it mean in, so always divide the numbers and say, if I have, put that way, avoid percentages. Sometimes it's okay, but otherwise, if you take to your grandma, what is a percentage? 40%? No, people. 3 people today bought a shampoo here in this shop. That's very concrete. 5 people in Kikuyu died today, and 3 of them were below age 50. That is a clear statement, and you wake up. Every second, thanks again to partly Kenya's innovation, I'll redo this. Every second people, sorry, I'm redoing this here. Every second, you can even get a feel, every second financial exclusion is reducing. So even though people are moving up, there's more adults in the world. Every second, from Nigeria to Tanzania, people jumping into the financial inclusion space. You don't see much Kenya here because almost all of Kenya are already included, but you see others. And you can check till 2030 how the number is. You can go back in time, and there's a lot of obviously modeling in there, but there's also some type of visual element that we have been preparing, and we will launch this next year, probably in April, at the Global Inclusion Growth Summit. And then you can give us feedback here too, because maybe we can make it better with your help. Before we go into the next, I think, part, which is much more hands-on with Sajni, any thoughts, questions? Yes? Yeah.
My question is, the guys that are vulnerable are the ones who have the minimum wage?
Yeah. Who is vulnerable? Is that the question? What does it mean? Yeah. No, an excellent question. So who is vulnerable? So maybe just let me say an introduction to this question, because it depends. The simple answer is depends, right? And people, if you ask somebody now in Germany, they have a different definition. So the key is that you have a dollar number, and you can measure it consistently. And if you say the vulnerable person is, $10 is not a vulnerable in Kenya, it's actually quite a rich person, then I'm okay with it. Then we do is a different threshold. But so the key is always that you have a threshold or a point in time, and then you can compare across. So that's the key thing as an intro. But here's the simple logic, right? We know what poor poverty means, and you refer to the Kenya poverty line. We have an appreciation what rich means. I think we have a sense what middle class means, which is people who start to live a good life, who can definitely send their kids to school. And then there's still a lot of people left who are in between, right? And that's basically the vulnerable in that definition. We define as $2 to $12 purchasing power parity. So $2 to $12 a day. If you have $5 a day, that means $150 a month to spend. But again, in Kenyan terms, with the PPP, again, going into economics here, it's maybe like $70 a month. Because $70 in Kenya get you as much, or at least as much as $150 in the US a month. So that would be vulnerable. Well, what's the idea of vulnerable? Yeah, if you have a shock, if a family member dies and you have to pay the funeral, you may actually be in deep trouble. If you're middle class, you can manage. That's the core idea. Yeah. But the key, but what is again interesting in the math and the statistics, if you have a country like Kenya, you have like many people still struggling, say at $3. There, I don't know the numbers. Let's say there are 10 million Kenyans here, $3. And let's assume there's 5 million Kenyans in the beginning of the middle class, 10 million and 5 million here. $3, $12. How many are at $7? They're in the middle. They are not up there or down there. It's not logical statistically that you have zigzag in the distribution. If you have that many poor and that many middle class, the vulnerable have to be in the middle though. Because they move naturally. People move from one to the next if things keep improving. Some get stuck, some move back, but in balance, people move. But very good question, thank you. Good. Over to you, Sajni. And I guess we adjust the schedule when we do the break, but you just decide, Sajni.
So we've already covered a lot of what I wanted to say around what is data storytelling, why it matters. Basically, just making information accessible, providing context, and then inspiring decision making. So as we saw, for example, in the population I/O, the data set behind all of it was just population demographics, age, gender, population today versus population in 2100, for example, and then life expectancy. But the way it was presented, it was very engaging. It allowed the user to interact with the data and made it more fun. So you can use it more and get like insights from it. In terms of components of a data story, you can start with data, that's the what. Then you add visuals, the how. And finally, you add the narrative, so the why. And together you get an insightful data story that's accessible, meaningful, and impactful information. In terms of the data, just 2 key points, but we'll talk more about it later. So it is the backbone. So without data, you don't know any trends, you don't know any insights, you don't know any patterns. And then you need reliable data. If you don't trust the data yourself, then it's unlikely that that you'll be able to convince the audience that the data is true. But data is the foundation of every story, and numbers alone rarely tell the full picture, so we need to add narratives and visuals around it. I'll just go through these quickly because we've covered a lot of it already. Visuals are essential because they make data more accessible, they reveal hidden patterns, they highlight key insights. But getting this right is super important because, or maybe you can tell me, like give me some examples of when you've been in a setting where you've just been deterred by the information you're seeing on a chart. Anyone?
Are you talking about being deterred in terms of you look at it, it's overwhelming when you look at it?
That's one example. Yeah.
Okay, so like now when they give the financial statements of, the banks and the companies closing, in the newspaper, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good example. So if data is presented in a table, like long lists of tables, then you don't know where to draw insight from, or you don't know what the message is, right? Another even like simple example is if you're, and we'll go through these later, and actually we have an exercise on it. Maybe the colors that they're using on the chart is just, or maybe the messaging is wrong, or maybe there's a typo, and people just get diverted into, like, from the main message. There's this principle, the Anscombe's quartet in the real world. Has anyone heard of it? So it's a data set which has like 4 groups of data, each with the same mean, the same variance, the same like correlation. And here what I'm trying to say is basically looking at the data set, visualizing it is very important, because if they didn't visualize this data set, if they didn't explore it, then they would think that all these 4 data sets are the same. But actually, if you try and plot them, you can see the red line, for example, shows like quite a scatter. That's the first data set. The second data set shows like a non-linear relationship. In the third one, you can see how this point is an outlier. And in the fourth one, you see most of the data is around the 7.5, and there's 1 in the 20 range or something. So visualizing your data, even if it's just for exploration as you're looking through your data set, is really important. Yeah, so summary statistics alone don't tell the whole story. You need to explore, visualize, even if it is in the early process before you come up with the whole final story of what you want to present. And then we've talked a lot about this already. So the narrative, it basically answers the question why the data matters and how it impacts the audience. You have to give data context and purpose, and it connects the dots for your audience. They guide the audience from the problem to the insight, and then finally the action. So we've already covered this in multiple ways, so I'll skip this. And then I'll also move on to the next session because we've started a bit late. Yeah. So often when we start thinking about data visualization, we should start with the audience, the message, and the dissemination. And for this, we need to plan for the 4 Ws. So why? We have to clearly identify the purpose of the graph. Why are we standing here to deliver the message? Or what is the important question that we're trying to answer? What? Is to identify and quantify the evidence to support the purpose. So, yeah, sorry, what is the question that we're trying to answer? Who is the audience? Is it scientists? Is it data specialists? Is it someone who is more senior level that we need to present financial statements to? And then finally, the where. Are we presenting it on social media? Is it a technical report? Is it just a chart on a newspaper? And depending on where we're presenting it, we have to look at complexity versus the range of.
No, it wasn't that. It said that the TV was. You should have pressed something on the TV.
Sorry? Okay, thanks. So if we're presenting our chart on social media, for example, you want to keep it very simple because you have a wide range of audience that are going to look at this. But if you're, for example, at the lower end, the technical report or methodological details, you can increase the complexity because people will have time to grasp whatever's on the chart. You can add information, you can add subtitles, you can add like the insight as well, because you have a very specific audience that is going to read it. And then a little bit about data preparation and the importance of data cleaning. So maybe you've heard of data wrangling, right? It is around cleaning and organizing data to make it more accurate, consistent, and ready for analysis. You can use many tools. A lot of you use Excel or Google Sheets, but also Python or Power BI or visualization tools. And some of the techniques that you use within data wrangling. So there's a lot of things. Data often comes messy, and they always say like 80% of your time you spend cleaning the data, right? It includes handling missing data, removing duplicates, filtering unnecessary variables, standardizing. Maybe they come in different units or different dates, even different time zones. You can detect outliers. You can do data transformations, convert the currency, for example, or you can merge and join different data sets. When we come to think about the different data types that we have quantitative data, so that's around numbers and measurements, so age, income, temperature. And you can get this in a continuous format, so height, weight, it could be 0, 2.3, 4.5, whatever number. Or you can get it in terms of discrete. So when you're counting population, for example, we can't have half a person. Then we have qualitative data. This is around categories or data that has labels: gender, product type, location. And this is often in nominal, so there's no specific order. Red, blue, green, there's no order of hierarchy or anything. or you can have ordinal data sets. So that has natural order. So how satisfied are you with today's class from 1 to 5? It has a ranking, right? You have time series data, so monthly sales over time, stock prices, daily temperature, and then you have spatial data sets. So some of the visuals that we showed you are around spatial data sets, which have geographic information, location of customers, areas in a map. Even the MGAS project, for example, it is covering different parts of Kenya across like counties at a hexagon level as well. But then when it comes to selecting your chart, you have to think about what is your data type and then what chart is useful for that particular data type. So this is super tiny to see. I'm going to try and go to this link. I think this is a really good website. So it's datatoviz.com. And you can really like also select the kind of data that you have. Maybe I zoom in. Can you see it back there? So for example, if you have numeric data, you can like go down the decision tree. You have one variable, or you have two variables, or multiple variables. And then depending on that, they even suggest what chart to use. If you have one variable, for example, I don't know, age, for example, you can draw a histogram and see what is the distribution of the age. Are there more young people? Are there more old people in the world, like we've seen already? If you have, what else? Multiple data sets, then you can draw like a bubble plot, for example, to see in X or Y, where is the density? And like if you click on the website, it also tells you how to do it and when the chart is useful. Do we have any like specific examples people are using that we want to try and look at which chart would be useful? Maybe the data scientist. Do you have some data that you're trying to analyze right now? Yeah? Okay, so what chart do you think you would use for that? Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, those are good examples, and we can see some of these in a minute as well. And then just very briefly in terms of visualization design principles. So like we've said, know your audience, keep things very simple, use the right chart type, use colors wisely, highlight the most important information, make it easy for your reader to know where to look, and avoid clutter. So with that, I want to do a bit of an exercise. Do you all have the sheets? Okay, Margaret is going to help. There is a bit of an exercise. We have 5 or 6 charts, and in groups of 3 or 2, we can look at each chart, and then in your group you can discuss what is wrong with the chart or how can you improve it.